Well, welcome to the Say More. I have a lot and not a lot to say about that podcast because the one time again, kind of put me in awe. Those little experiences where you have them and they just kind of stun you. They put you into a moment of realization of truth, or an affirmation of truth, or just something that is, echoes your own experience.
You see
So
truth in him.
yeah,
Like you experience truth in him because he's just so authentic and loving and present and just open up to this is my experience and what happened. And wow, what mystical stories though, right? I mean, I love that shit. That's why I'm writing the book. That's why I was into the Yogananda book too. Have you ever read Autobiography of a Yogi?
no, I'm not well read at all, actually. But this is the third probably every podcast, talked about,
It's a
coming.
it's a spiritual classic, right? That most people get to, and it's certainly one I read very early on in my spiritual journey. What made me want to go to India, and yeah, it was not for everybody, but I mean, there's a lot of mystical stories in that book. I mean, Yogananda
Yeah.
starts off as an infant, but he's what's called an avatar, which means he remembers all of his lifetimes, even as an infant, right? So
Wow.
he's awake and enlightened of all of his lifetimes, fully awake when he's born. So most of us go through that ignorance, that veil of forgetfulness when we're born, and or so if that's your belief system, and we have to kind of not start over, but there's the veil of forgetfulness. So Yogananda starts off his book with being frustrated as an infant because he's infant and he can't move his legs and doesn't have control. And he first leaves, tries to run away from home when he was like 8 years old, and finds his guru eventually when he's like 11 and goes and lives with him. And then moves on from there to where he goes and meets these amazing yogis throughout northern India and in the Himalayas that are all magical. He meets a yogi that lives on only air.
Mm.
Air and water, and that's it. And so doesn't eat. And then he meets a yogi that lives with the tigers, and he meets Babaji, who is a very who's been alive for thousands of years, and
Okay.
if you're meant to, he can either appear to you or you can meet him. And then he also met Jesus and a bunch of other guys in the Himalayas in the cave. So I mean, it's very, very mystical. And
Yeah.
so if you like mystical stories, some people are not that. That's not their nature. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to, it doesn't resonate with them. But if you like mystical stories, you have to read Autobiography of a Yogi, and then it really sparks your thirst for that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that is the way he kind of lives his life, that way. And that's what I found, Marty, that is, it's interesting that he was drawn to that book, later on in his life, because to a certain degree, it sounded like his childhood was a lot like that. I mean, being drawn to enjoy, I don't know anybody that enjoys Catholic Church, even
As
as
a
adult,
child.
but even as adult. And that's not to say it's not to say there's nothing to enjoy about Catholic Church. It's it's and I'm being biased. I'm not making fun of Catholics. I love you all. No problem. It's just there is an ominous to Catholicism, it feels. At least that's my experience. So that's my projection anyways. It's there's a repentance and it almost feels like, a fear of God, a judgment of God, or being judged by God, and this fear of hell. And it's even the portraits and everything is the Gothic churches. I mean, Gothic, it has this connotation. So as a child who, like he said, he's like, I loved it. I loved the rituals. I loved being a part of that. That's, to me, that's unique. Maybe that's not as unique. I don't know,
Well,
everybody.
beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I must say, I loved Catholic. Of course, I was only 4, but I loved the nuns.
Yes.
My dad hated the nuns. He had a terrible experience with the nuns in the 1930s 30s, he had to go live at this convent with his brothers and sisters during the Depression, and the nuns were very cruel to him. So he's always, had an aversion to that. I, on the other hand, walked into Catholic school when I was 4 and fell in love with the nuns. Couldn't wait to go to school every day, wanted to go to church all the time until I didn't, until I had that
Yeah.
experience of seeing the dead body in church. But so when you describe it, I was just thinking, wow, the way you're describing it wasn't my experience. So,
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
and that's not been my experience either. It's and this kind of is the point of programming. I have only like 2 experiences with Catholic Church, and one of them was my brother's wedding. You know, that was an awesome experience. So I'm completely projecting from a bias of program belief about what that is about, because I do know people that do enjoy that, um, do enjoy that spiritual religion, doing that spiritual ritual, that expression of their spiritual beliefs. So, but what is interesting is he was very aware and very present to that experience as a young child, and it's you seldom hear that the adults took the child out of Catholic Church because of experience that the parents were afraid of that had nothing to do with Catholicism. Really, it was a very natural process of young love and no big deal, and so that's a very interesting way to start your life. But it's also very interesting that he didn't rebel against that. Marty doesn't seem like the guy to rebel against whatever's in front of him. It's okay. That's what's in front of me. Well, that's what's in front of me, and that's what direction I go. That level of surrender. He seemed to be attracted to that kind of surrender and that the Kundalini experience. And what I think I love is the the duality of, yes, that's a mystical experience of Kundalini, 2.5 hours of this surging through your body and to this pure bliss, but then the very vulnerable and real acknowledgement of the fear that he had towards the end of that, the terrifying realization that if I continue, this is going to kill me and I'm not going to be able to have this experience in life anymore. That contrast is very, very important, I think, because I think we get attached and we can get caught up in the mystical, right? The mystical stories that the way they go,
Totally.
we get attached to that, and we believe and we get programmed to think that the only way to achieve that enlightenment is through a mystical experience. Sometimes yes, a lot of times no. It's a very unique path, and that's what I love. Some of his stories of, I can't remember. I have terrible memory of name. Whoever was it Muktananda?
Yeah, his guru is Mujinanda. Yeah.
Guru describing it of like, well, yeah, I had 1,000 of these experiences, but now I'm bringing that blissful awareness into full body experience. And it's like you're talking about the bliss envy that we get. It's like, oh, I'm envious of the bliss you have, because if I had that bliss, then I would get to the enlightenment. And it doesn't seem to work that way. It doesn't. It is a path to enlightenment, but it is not the only path to
Yeah, and
enlightenment.
it's not. In fact, it like you said, sometimes it can be a big uh, block. I
Yes.
mean, it certainly was for me because I had a tendency for sort of mystical experiences in early on in my journey as well,
Yeah.
and I tended to. What happens is you get stuck and you look for that same experience, and then you
Yes.
get. It's kind of the same thing as is you're limiting yourself. If you're looking for the same experience you had in anything, you're limiting yourself to the infinity amount of experience you can have. So you got to let go of those things, and ultimately, they're just they're not they're just experiences that come and go, and that's what the teaching is. Anything that comes and goes is not it. Anything that comes and goes is experience,
Yes.
and what remains is what is the truth.
It is what it is. It is what it is. Well, and that's why I I think you can point to awareness. There's an awareness that you can carry. Uh, I don't know if you can call awareness permanent. It is awareness unchanging.
Yeah, awareness is permanent and unchanging.
There you
But
go.
our awareness of awareness is not, it's like our
Yes.
conscious awareness of that. And I wanted to say too, when Marty had that experience of stopping it, like throwing himself off the couch because he thought he was going to die, that is a very, not very common, but it is it can be a common experience with it's the experience of the death of the ego. Ramana
Yeah.
describes it the same way. Ramana Maharshi, that he mentioned several times, described, laying on the floor and thinking he was going to die. Like he was fully thinking he was going to die. And it was the death of the ego. Byron Katie, same thing. Eckhart Tolle, same thing. It does. And Adi Ashanti's talked about it too. He says people think they want the truth and they think they want to wake up. But when it starts to happen and there's this annihilation of the ego and annihilation of everything you've ever known
Mm.
about yourself and your identity, that's what usually stops it from happening.
Yeah. What and and more to say more about that. I think what's the double down cool thing about it is that I think it would be very easy to have regret, and that's why I kind of asked him that question, because for me I would have regret about, well, do you regret not going to that final, letting yourself die, and that's when he goes into, no, I don't regret that. That was the next step, and then he
I
says,
think he did regret it at first. He did, because he said he beat himself up for a while.
yes, yeah,
And that's when he learned to love himself and surrender and
yeah,
accept. Yeah.
yes. So the lesson from that, even though it takes time, the lesson that comes out of that is you forgive yourself for that, because I mean that happened. He was terrifyingly blissful, and he had to abandon that process of death because he knew that he was going to die if he continued on to that, or in the moment. And so he left that state. And that, again, like it's so, when you say the ego is sticky, these patterns are sticky, the programming is sticky, it's the perfect word. It's like Velcro that you keep like trying to wiggle out of, but it's like, well, if you go this way, it's going to still get attached to, and it's very easy to look back on these experiences, said, well, I would have reached enlightenment had I not stopped myself from going to that. And that's regret. Now you're devolving back down. And that's why the forgiveness in all the experiences that you think or can convince yourself wasn't the right thing. Well, God damn it, it happened. So you can't go back and change that experience. And we were just, before the podcast, we were talking about that as, conversation you had with Don Oakley, who we talked to. Oh, did I say that? Don Oakley?
Yep.
Yeah, thank God. Normally I'm terrible with that. Was the extra story that comes in our experiences, right? And you said well, it's cold outside. I want to be comfortable. It all comes, this extra story is a program that we're always seeking to find comfort. We want comfortability for ourselves. And this extra minutia, and the stories, and that surround us just being in whatever it is that stickiness of the ego. It's telling us and trying to convince us that there's more to the already profound moment that is right in front of you, when really all you're doing is distracting yourself from being in that profound already moment that is right in front of you.
You hit the nail on the head right there. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
And that's why what kind of spirals me out and why I shut down when we get to that point, that story that just kind of stunned me, is because I realized I was asking him the question of, do you regret that? Because I know I would. And then I go, oh shit, I shouldn't have asked him that. That's a dumb question. It's like, well, no, it's not a dumb question. It's a very real, and it's like, now I'm spiraling out, right? That's the story that you've watched me spiral out of that, plenty of times when we talk about, and that's the spiraling out of, just fucking be, man, and just, I think meditation is that great tool to keep you in that state of being. Whatever is. But it is hard.
Yeah.
And it is, go ahead.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think it is hard. I was just saying, I think, but it is our natural state. Our natural state is to be in the present. Well, we can't ever not be in the present moment, but we can be very, very distracted and thinking, multitasking. Oh, I have to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
And yeah, I mean, I think what's hard is that we have a very undisciplined mind. That's the
Yeah.
hard part. We believe our thoughts, and we all have squirrel minds, that
Yeah.
run back and forth all the time. And they're just basically very undisciplined. Mostly it's because most people are not aware of the constant conversation that's happening, the debate that's happening in their skull at all times, even as you're falling asleep and as you wake up. When you're in the shower, you're thinking about 2,500 different things instead of just showering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
alone. And all you're doing is having a debate with yourself, a conversation with yourself in your head. And that's keeping you from being present. So it's there for us to be present, but we are choosing because we unconsciously believe that what we're thinking about in our heads is more enjoyable and more real than the present moment. And it's because we're constantly self-soothing with our thoughts because we're coming up with solutions that we like.
Yes.
Of different, we come to a solution. Well, maybe I'll meet my friend today and I'll wear this, and then maybe I'll wear this instead, and then maybe we'll go to this restaurant, and then you land on something that's soothing, that feels good,
Yes.
And we don't like it when we've got negative thoughts that are constantly going, but the only reason why they're negative is because you believe them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that was happening sometimes within the conversation, and then other times it was just, fully drawn in. And that's what's cool is having been disciplined regimentally, having a regiment of discipline over a period of time now. And we were talking about this again before the podcast, where I said, I think, I can't remember exactly, but I was talking about there's not new hurdles. There's just more of the same hurdles. And I've been thinking about this because I think for a long time, while the seeking process, I was searching for a thing or an experience or a way of life or fill in the blank of that was going to give me fulfillment. And this new year, this year has been a lot of reflection, and we've talked about that a bit, privately and on, podcasts. And this year has been a conscious awakening, on a mass global social level. And this just I came to realize this, kind of the new year, the start of the year, reflecting, and, I did not project much into this year. I don't have this long-term, how I want the year to go. There's just things that are already set in motion that I'm going to continue on. And if something comes up, I will do that. It's been very letting go, very surrendering. And so when I say that there's nothing new to uncover, because I think my system even knows that I have found contentment and I have found fulfillment. That's not to say I don't know if that's an enlightenment necessarily, but I do know that I found the fulfillment and the contentment I had been looking for. So now I guess the practice is on bringing that into everyday life and being more present and not having all this extra. So the practice is now just being on guard of myself, is when am I in now and when am I in programmed fear or distraction. I just don't know that there's going to be what could bring me more fulfillment than I've already had is the question. And the ego doesn't have a good answer for there's no, oh, this is your money's gonna. It's like, well, fuck, I don't know, maybe, probably not, But then also I'm gonna ramble on.
No.
Because the identity too, I've been really struggling with the identity question, because every time it's like, well, who am I? Who am I really? It's like, I don't really know how to answer that. I know how to give you patterns to point to, things that I tend to do, but I'm not really any of those things. Obviously, I'm a father now. I will be a father forever. Those
It's
things.
a role.
Yes.
It's a role that you're playing because you're not a father in this moment.
Correct. I'm not being a father right now.
No. And so they're just different roles that we play. The question, who am I, is try to find the I.
Right. Yeah. That's been rattling around up there for a long time. It's like, I don't know, and there's been, I think it was Werner and Roger, because I went back and, is re-editing some of those podcasts with the new intros, and, there's these little nuggets of consistency and these, it's like, I don't know what the fuck is doing this really, and I think, I actually think Marty had a really good, spirit is manifesting this and animating it at the same time. I really like that way of putting it. I think that reinforces kind of some of the other conversations. Like, I don't know. You think I'm in control? And that's what I think I've given my wife and I, we struggle with that probably the most is like, well, you got this, right? And like, I don't know. I'm a leaf in the fucking wind, man. I always kind of have been. I'm just going to give you a facade of structure and control that I don't really have, it's not really my thing. And in a lot of ways I feel, at peace knowing that a large majority of my time has been spent as a tumbleweed, in a lot of ways, surrendering to the wave. And the biggest part of my struggle is when I'm afraid to trust in what's being guided to me. That fear that struggle of not following the whim of, spirit, that's when I really struggle the most. I know that. I don't know how to tell other people that. I don't know how to give my wife confidence that, no, it's going to be okay. Because that's not what I'm being told, right? That's not what Spirit doesn't tell you. You're going to be okay. Spirit says, do this. Spirit says, go that. That's the gravity going that way. There's no, you'll be fine.
And that's her journey.
Yeah.
That's her journey to your journey is how you feel about it and how you communicate it and how you trust even how she takes it. And don't try to take on her process.
Yes. Well, and that has been our process for a long time. And it's funny, we just, our paths have recently merged um, where she's more on the path of like, I'm not going to sit here and worry. She's worrying a lot less.
Mm.
You know, it's I think our whole life and our coming up to Wisconsin, moved back by family, and it was all to fit an idea that she had in her mind, and none of that's worked out. Not that our life hasn't worked out, but it hasn't worked out to be that projection. It's, in a way, I think there was a depression and a letdown of like, well, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. But when you refocus on, but I have everything that I could possibly want. I have everything I need. It doesn't have to look like what I projected it to look like. That's when she started to kind of shift, and our paths merged more, where it's like our world is small in a lot of ways right now because we have 3 kids. We have a house, we have animals, we have responsibilities. It's like, this is all we can manage right now. We can't take on all this other shit that is no way controllable anyways. And so our life is very much like, okay, move this. And then me letting go of that mystical journey of, well, I got to find my mystical journey. And it's like, well, fuck, I've lived a lot of experiences and I've had some really profound events in my life. As you were part of some of them, and heard about all the rest of them most likely. And those are not my favorite moments per se. My favorite moments are the small one-on-ones of the unexpected moments. The moments that, if you tell a story about, don't seem that profound. But in the moment, they were the most profound. And you can only share that with maybe the 1 or 2 people that you were with in those moments. But the treasure is what we share together in that awareness, in that experience, not the experience. It's not the Kundalini, it's the learning after the fact. It's the integrating that bliss into life. That's where the treasure lies, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it a lot the last couple of years. Your life is your lesson. Your life is your
Yeah.
journey. Your life is your awakening. We're given the exact amount, and Marty said it too. We're given exactly what we need to wake up and to have the experience that we came here to have. It's all spirit moving through us, and there's nothing we can do about it. We can either struggle, we can hang on for dear life, we can fight against it, or we can surrender. And there's 1,000 other ways to do it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the letting go is letting go of the how and the when we think that will unfold.
Yeah. Surrender, all of us. Surrender doesn't mean just surrender in one way.
Yeah.
It means surrender in all ways.
Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't mean just surrender to, your career.
Nope. It's always. And that was Patty, man. That was her story of like, and take this too,
take my non-struggle.
Take my non-struggle and take that too. Fuck. Big shit, man.
Yeah.
Big stuff.
Another good one.
Yeah, man. What a way to kick off 2021, which so far, day 4, been pretty fucking spectacular. Cross fingers, knock on wood. It's been awesome. So
good.
And next week we get to talk to Sarah.
To Sarah, Marty's wife.
Marty's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Probably see the same kitchen.
Yeah. She usually speaks on Zoom from her office though, so we'll see.
Well, that'll be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah. All right. Love ya.
Thank you. Love you too.
Bye.